tell you a little bit about our journey, the discoveries we made in the process with Breeze, going through the value wheel exercise. Then talk a little bit about some success we had with some major clients, and one or two of us in the room share the same clients. And certainly with Thames, we were in a real crisis when we met Ian and started working on the value wheel. How we discovered that we had, in times of turmoil, fantastic value which was just lying inert within the business, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, some real meaningful value in terms of how we can articulate with the client. Big prize, there's a very ugly person in our industry as a supplier. I think Martin would agree with me. A guy that's come from some of your industries, from the automotive world, so how we turned him around, that's an interesting story. And then tell you a little bit about the future of an emerging client model that we have within the water companies as they struggle with ever-increasing demands in terms of capital development, meeting standards, and being able to charge you and me less money in the process. So that means change. And then tell a little bit about initiative, and it's our first, I guess, play in terms of plug and play, where we're joining with other like-minded suppliers to the industry, non-competitive partners, to actually join together in a framework which hopefully is beginning to show the water industry how they can behave in the future and maximise potential of all their supply chain. And then just finish off in conclusion some of our key learnings and some of the things that we're about to work on. So bear with me. First of all, Saint-Gobain. It's the third largest French company after Total and Peugeot. Some 207,000 employees, turnover 44 billion euros, and we're in the top 100 sustainable corporations as per the Stock Exchange Index. And we operate in over 55 countries. And we're totally around, our ambition is, with the exception of one division which we're trying to divest at the moment, but it's not a good time to divest, and actually a very profitable division, but all the rest of us are totally around trying to be a world leader in construction markets, and particularly offering innovative solutions to the world's, I guess, fundamental global challenges of population growth in developing countries, energy usage, and the environment. We've got 4 basic sectors, and in each sector we're either number 1 on a continental scale or number 1 worldwide. And where there's sufficient mass within the business in individual countries or areas, we operate through delegations. So I'm part of the UK, Ireland and South African delegation. And that organisation in its own right has a turnover in excess of 4 billion euros, employs some 22,000 people, of which 19,000 are in the UK. And maybe you begin to identify some names that you recognise. So there's Jewson's there in building distribution. They're one of the leading distributors of building products alongside Wolsey and Travis Perkins. You've got British Gypsum there, who are the leading provider of plasterboard and plaster to the building industry. Artex is a name you may recognise, and there's installation companies within that lot. So at a corporate level, not a name well known in the UK, but certainly you probably recognise some of the businesses that we have. I'm not managing director of Saint-Gobain, but Saint-Gobain PAM UK Limited, and my empire isn't quite as big as that. Basically, my company has 3 business units. Firstly, we provide pipeline product solutions to the water industry. We also provide security and access through access covers to underground infrastructure for all utilities. And thirdly, we take all the waste products from the toilets and the bars and wash basins in big buildings, particularly in London, away in cast iron drain systems. We have a turnover of £120 million, a return on investment of just under 29%, employ 500 people, and have 3 manufacturing plants in the UK. But a big change recently is we have closed local production, and now 50% of our product comes from overseas. Just to understand our customers are major utilities, major civil engineering companies, and distributors within the industry. I think most of you will know those businesses. And the area I want to talk about today is actually our water industry customers, because it has significant problems in that area. And just to give you some of the characteristics so you understand where we're coming from, and Martin's mentioned some of them in his introduction. Basically, there's 28 water companies, although some of them are amalgamated, but they keep their distinct names and areas. And the industry was privatised, so at the end of 1989, before that they were all public water boards, etc., run by engineers, and after that they became privatised, and that's seen quite a sea change in how these companies operate. Since privatisation, we've seen dramatic change in ownership, from fairly sleepy companies. We've seen companies from the outside come in and take over the water companies, and we still have quite an eclectic mix of ownership, because in Scotland, Northern Ireland, it's still mainly public bodies, whereas in England and Wales, it's very much private entrepreneurial approach. We have multi-utility providers, as in United Utilities, not just providing water, but gas and electricity. And increasingly, we're finding that actually water companies are becoming owned by financial institutions. So South Stath is owned by a capital investment company, and Thames Water recently was sold from RWE to the Australian bank Macquarie. So that's changed how they think and how they define success going forward, and even it defines their horizon and how prepared they are in terms of thinking about long-term planning. It's a very regulated market. The government's appointed Ofwat to oversee licences and granting permission to extract water and distribute it, as well as telling them how much they can charge me and you for our water bill. And every 5 years, the industry goes into planning mode, and the water companies have to put forward a strategic plan, direction plan, to Ofwat. Ofwat looks at their plans, usually cuts the capital they want to actually meet legislation and various water quality standards, and it comes back and then tells the water companies how much they can charge us. And that actually means that over this 5-year period, there's a very distinct spend pattern. So year one, they're recovering from the planning process. All the capital work goes out to consultants, then gets given to contractors, and then in the last quarter of the year, as the manufacturers start to see some work again. And then years 2, 3, and 4 are fantastic levels of activity, and then in year 5 they go into planning mode to prepare their strategic planning statements, and the work dries up again. And in our business, it really has made some fundamental changes, because from a peak to a trough year 1 to year 3 has meant 60% less activity. And when you've got huge assets in the country, it's actually meant we had to close those assets down, because we couldn't operate in that type of environment within the industry. Procurement is very much regulated by the procurement directive, so it's very transparent. And just to give you an idea of the total spend of water companies, their capital expenditure alone is worth about £15.7 billion over 5 years. And our markets that we're in Minchin, we sell about £70 million worth of pipe products, 80% direct with water companies, including their partners, their contractor partners, 20% via distributors for the diffuse market, and access covers is actually the reverse of that, 80% via distributors and 20% direct. So, what was our issue? Well, for 150 years, we've historically been a leading business, manufacturing business within the industry. Even to the point where our chairman in the 80s, when he used to go and visit Scotland or water boards or Northern Ireland, the water boards used to lay on a Rolls Royce to pick him up from the airport. And I guess we had, as a core competence, we were engineers, we were good engineering, high quality products. The board was mainly engineers, and that type of core engineering competence resonated very well with engineers who were in public bodies running the newly privatised water companies. However, things changed. And I guess, to date what we found was actually that as more and more the privatisation kicked in, boards changed in profile, became more entrepreneurial, certainly more financial in terms of makeup, and they actually withdrew from the procurement process, which they'd actually been quite involved in up to that point. And much to the demise of manufacturers, the chosen partners for delivery for the water companies were consultants for design and contractors for the work. So they actually chose the partners to deliver the work needed that they needed to get through within